I'm going to die out here. You're almost through, but that was really cool. Ladies and gentlemen, my guest, Wayne Peet. Wayne, that was cool, man.
Yeah, I wish the mix was a little better.
Yeah.
they had the keyboard like way too loud. Like if you were in the room, it was the bass and drums were like way more slamming underneath all of that. So you have to adjust it in your mind when you're listening.
I was actually in the room.
Oh yeah, you were there that night.
Yeah, and so was Roland Ascaruns. He comes there a lot, or he went there a lot, and he's on today. So he said, "Hey, wasn't that Sunspace?" Yes, that was. That was the, for those of you listening, Sunspace was this really cool little funky place in Sunland, which is in LA, and it was run by an artist, and so it was definitely like an art space. And Brad Dutz, the percussionist, had this series going on, a new music series, and it was just great. You really just, it's hard to find music like that, being played live in LA, unless you, I guess, know the secret places.
Yeah, and he was like once a week for a long time.
I think it was over 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was great. So Wayne Peet was there, and the drummer, I remember that night because that was the first time I heard your son on drums, and I was so impressed with him. Great drummer.
Yeah, he's turned out okay.
Yeah, and the bass player, he looked young. Just, I mean, you couldn't see his face really with the mask, but he looked like he was probably young as well.
Yeah, he's a colleague of my son's who worked with him all through when they were at UCLA.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they go on a lot of different projects together. And,
does your son live here?
He lives in LA, Echo Park.
Oh, okay. So he's working in, is he working in different genres?
Yeah, he covers a lot of different things. He's kind of like he plays in a few different bands. In fact, he's just going to be leaving on a tour with a band for this month, which he was supposed to be touring all that last summer, but of course that all got shut down.
Yeah.
And he's also been engineering and producing and writing. And cool. He's a studio player for a number of different people, call him. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Me, I use him on a lot of sessions.
That's nice. I always wondered, how does it feel when it's your kid? I mean, obviously there are moments where you're not thinking about that. You're just playing or, working together. But there must be other times when there's some kind of tie that comes up, or.
I guess, I mean, he's been playing since he was really young. So, I mean, we've played together, all along and stuff. Yeah. And then from when he was just a beginner into what, now that he's like professional. It is, I mean, it's an incredible pleasure to be able to, have that connection for sure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but it's just like if you're playing with anybody that you like to play with, if they're good, there's a kind of interplay, and they bring stuff to you and you bring stuff to them, and you know how that works.
Yeah, that's really cool. I remember I did a gig with Larry Kuntz and his father, Dave Kuntz, and it was just the two of them playing guitar and me. And I just was so blown away because they were from the same musical universe. And it was just so interesting to me, it's like, oh my God, they really think alike. And, you can really tell. It was cool.
Yeah. That reminds me of like the Cline brothers, Nels and Alex.
Oh, yeah.
They're twins. And, of course, one's a guitarist, one's a drummer, percussionist. But they've said that they have to actually, on purpose, not play the same thing. That, like when they're playing together.
That's interesting. Wow. I didn't actually realize they were twins. I
Yeah,
knew they were brothers.
yeah.
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. They're very interesting people.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Rich Poulin is here, and he said, Wayne and Ellington have recorded a lot for me. Great.
Yeah, yeah. I've been using. I kind of snuck my son in on a number of things when he was younger. As he was able to handle it. Just also to kind of put him under a little pressure to, you know, he's not just doing it for me. He's doing it, for somebody else. So he better step up. Kind of,
Yeah.
So yeah, there's been a number of people that he's played on their projects, over the years.
Yeah. Very cool. So Wayne was the engineer. He was came out and did us live at the Blue Whale, my group called The Moment, and it really did such a great job. And I know that you're called on to do that a lot, live recording, and obviously in the studio too. And you're a great engineer and editor. Well, tell me about the studio. How did that all come about for you?
Well, years ago, I was just a musician, and I had during college years, I bought a 4-track TAC reel to reel to record myself basically. And it kind of started from there. And so it started with me just recording for myself. And then as the technology changed, I was in LA and I ended up getting a
I'm sorry, you broke up on that
digital audio
word.
tape that you
Sorry, sorry, you broke up on that word. You ended up
DAT.
getting a DAT. Okay.
Yeah, a DAT, digital audio
Yeah.
tape. And
Yeah.
at that time, it was the most affordable way to make a, record quality recording. And since it was 2-track, it would be live mixing, or I would mix from the reel to reel 4-track to it. And then I found out that I could actually record other people and get paid. That would allow me to buy more equipment to record better. So it kind of snowballed from there. I didn't really intend to become an engineer per se, but I started doing a lot of jazz records because since I knew the music, I could live mix a band correctly for people that were on a budget, because they would go into rock and roll studios and get horrendous results because jazz is a little different approach, and when they would walk in and the guy would call the bass a cello, you knew you were in bad shape. So I got pretty good at that because I knew like when the solos were going to come and what the in head and the out head was, and so I could do a live mix, so beyond that I just got more gear and got into ADATs for multi-tracking, then would mix that and edit it on the computer. Then the computers got more powerful, so I got into multi-tracking on computers. And when I moved here, converted the garage, and now it's off into the house.
It is.
Yeah, it's got different. I've got like different ISO rooms and stuff that are connected with video as well as audio, so that I can record live bands playing together, but yet have separation for mixing and editing purposes. Yeah.
Yeah, Wayne. It's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. Well, it's 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 a gradual process. So if I just started from scratch and put it together, it would be a big job, but it's kind of gradually kind of metamorphized
Yeah.
down the line.
You know, um, I mean, I wonder if we could speak about this at all, like the different ears of different engineers. I mean, that's kind of huge. I mean, you said like there's different recording if you're, say, you're recording a rock band or a jazz band, but also I mean, even amongst engineers who do jazz,
Oh,
several
yeah.
engineers, the ears are so different. I mean, is there anything to talk about on that subject?
Well, every engineer's different and they all don't like what the other ones do. Because you come up with, your own methods and whatnot. I mean, I've always tried to learn. I never went to school for it, but I've tried to assimilate from, people that knew what they were doing. Like I had the opportunity to assist on a number of movie sessions and whatnot with Bennie Wallace, who was a tenor player and a composer, and be able to see some of the top engineers working, at Capitol and some other places. A guy, Roger Rhodes, who recorded Ellington and
Hmm.
a bunch of people, and just watch them and ask them questions and stuff. And I would always go on the records with Nine Winds that I did a lot of work with, my own and other people's. I would often go to the mastering session, and they used John Golden, who's one of the masterers.
Oh,
And I used to pick his brain or just be a fly on the wall
yeah.
and learn stuff. So I've been able to pick up things, from people that really know what they're doing without going to school, but, still learning. And then also early on, I was an engineer at the Musicians Union when they used to have a
Oh,
studio down there.
yeah.
And I was one of, actually 4 people. There was one guy that ran it, Joseph Armias, and then 2 other guys. It was Vince Tividad and Jim Watson, who were all of us were musicians. Jim was a drummer, Vince was a bass player, and I'm a keyboard player. And we would play together as well. But out of all of those people, Vince was the only one who had engineer training. And the rest of us were just kind of figuring it out. But we used to exchange ideas and still do to this day, help each other. When somebody figures out something, they go, "Hey, do you know about this?" And kind of pool our knowledge.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I thought they have a studio in their new location.
Yeah, they probably do. I mean, who knows? I haven't been up there.
Cammie's actually on.
Oh,
She
cool.
said, I was so lucky to have Wayne play and get the other musicians and engineer my demo several years ago. He's the best. And actually, that's an interesting subject too. I mean, you play different genres, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Cammie's demo probably was mostly standards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I know, didn't you, weren't you like, uh, oh, his name just went out of my head. The guitar player, the straight ahead guitar player, older guy who didn't, wasn't
Kenny
Kenny
Burrell.
Burrell, yeah. You were like the main guy who came and did his live recordings, right?
Yeah. In fact, I've did like pretty much all of his records since the turn of the century.
Wow. That sounds like a long time.
We're actually trying to get something else going right now from some of the live recordings that never got released,
Oh,
and they're kind of in talks with the major jazz label.
oh, cool.
Can't really say what it is, but they're trying to figure that out, because there's a number of things that have been recorded and never got released.
Yeah.
I mean, up till now, his work with him has been the biggest location stuff that I've done. I did a few concerts at Royce Hall that had a number of, like, from orchestra to big band to small groups, all on the same concert. And
Oh my God.
one of them a few years ago, I had 72 tracks going, which is the biggest one that I've done so far.
Wow. That's amazing. Hi, Vinny Golia. Yeah, I know we're freezing on and off, I think. He said we're freezing.
Hmm.
We froze out there for a bit. Yeah, wow, that sounds like a lot of work.
It's a lot of prep. I mean, the reason why that was 72 tracks wasn't that there was 72 going at once.
Yeah,
The fact that they would go from a big band
yeah,
to a choir to a duo to an
yeah.
orchestra without any time between.
Oh
So
my God.
basically had to have everything set up and only a few things that you could really have time to move or reset. So it's a big planning operation.
God, Wayne. You have a lot of patience, man.
Well, I mean, it's a whole, you work with the sound people there,
Yeah.
and thankfully the people at Royce are really great to work with.
Yeah.
Because that can be an issue. Like when you come in to record live, it's kind of a pain for the people that are just trying to do sound,
Yeah.
And some people get very territorial about that and try to make it hard. Whereas in PA work too, and I know how that feels. It's just like another thing you have to deal with when you just wanted to do one thing.
Yeah.
But if there's a recording going on, that's the most important thing, because the PA is just like in one ear, out the other. It's just passing people. If some little thing is not right in the PA, people won't remember that. But if the recording is messed up, it has repercussions that go a long ways. And the people at UCLA were very aware of that. In fact, they would mention it before I would. That, like, well, we know that really the most important thing here is the recording. And so that makes it easier. It's not like you're trying to be more important, but it just the reality of, what it is.
Man. And you've written for movies. What's your involvement with movies?
It's pretty wide variety, from playing on sessions. Vinny Golia did a lot of movie scores, and I would often be in the bands and sometimes involved in the mixing and editing. I've also I've scored TV commercials. I worked on a number of political documentaries that I score the whole music, do all the sound effects, mix, clean up all the, location recordings and whatnot. I did a feature film for director Frederick Keeve, I don't know, a couple years ago now, year and a half. And I mixed that and did all the sound design and sound effects, and actually won best sound design at the Culver City Film Festival.
Oh my God. Wow.
For that feature. So yeah, I've done a lot of work over the years. I did some TV movies and TV shows with Bennie Wallace in various capacities.
Yeah.
So, and I played the ballpark organ on Bull Durham.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, now I feel more connected to that movie.
Yeah, check it out. It's I did a temp score for it that included the ballpark organ, and they ended up using the ballpark organ. So I made it into the final.
That's funny. Um, oh, thanks, Dan. My friend Dan Davila, he's always supplying allmusic.com discographies. So we'll look at that in a minute, and then I'll show you too. I don't know if you add stuff on there or not. Sometimes I add stuff on, but I don't know where it gets it. It gets it from somewhere, but not always me. But so um, so yeah, one reason I like this show is because I can ask questions that might sound stupid if I just ask them on the gig, But now it's kind of like it could be okay. It was not necessarily a stupid question, but so what we heard at Sunspace, right? That was well. First of all, do you have a genre name for that or not? Is it new music or
I don't know.
yeah?
That's
It's
somebody
kind of
else has
hard,
to
yeah.
come up with that. I mean, it's related to jazz. I mean, that particular gig was pretty much just improvised. I
So
had
would that be the genre, improvised music, or would it be
maybe.
would it be thought of as avant-garde or no? Avant-garde is a
Well,
little
I don't
different.
know how avant-garde. I mean, because it's not really. I mean, it's avant-garde if you want to compare it to like straight up pop music, but in terms of outside kind of jazz stuff, it's groove oriented, so it's not completely just abstract,
Yeah.
you
I think
know.
I think improvised music is actually has become a genre, right? That term?
I I guess I don't really follow music analysis too much. I
Yeah.
just do it. But I mean it's not even that. I mean that kind of music at that gig really relates to early 70s Miles
Huh. Oh, yeah, right.
and that kind of groove
Yeah.
improvising that is not necessarily, like easy listening fusion type of groove jazz, but I mean, it has aspects of that, but it's a little more free form in its approach.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that is apparent when I'm listening is the different ways that you get tension and release. And I mean, it's probably partly because I'm a teacher and I use tension and release in my teaching because I want singers to be dynamic, like, soft, loud, or, building
Yeah.
tension. So, but the like one thing that you did in the sun space was you would build tension by repetitive licks, you
Hmm.
know, and also the tension notes, the notes were not like in the key, and so that, uh, yeah, I'd love to talk about that a little bit, just maybe your development in that area, your recognition of what you liked or what you thought worked or was cool? Was it because you listened to people like Miles in that period, or when did you actually start kind of thinking, "Oh, I like that style"?
Well, I mean, it happened back during college years. Initially, I was kind of into rock, and jazz to me in high school was just kind of like high school stage band.
What rock did you listen to or play?
Uh, I was really into, I mean, a variety of stuff, but you know, Beatles, Pink Floyd, Joe Walsh, King Crimson,
Right. Okay.
Deep Purple,
Yeah. 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 Okay. That makes sense.
and then so jazz to me was, I mean, like that that stage band thing, because I was from out in Imperial Valley, was where I was in high school, so a little more isolated than the coast. Uh, but I mean, you know, like really popular at that time was that band Chase,
Yeah.
you know, which was like a big band with all trumpets, you know, but super powerful kind of a thing. And I wasn't really like, I mean, my piano teacher was really into Count Basie and had me playing out of a Count Basie book as well as classical stuff when I was in high school. But so I had some exposure to it. I saw Buddy Rich play like in the next town over, like a concert stuff. But once I got to college in Santa Barbara, I kind of fell in with a guy, John Rapson, a trombone player who just passed,
Oh.
who's been a colleague over the years. And he had a band, kind of a jazz plus, you know, jazz rock, kind of Chicago kind of thing, plus more traditional stuff. And then another good friend of mine, Sam Goldstein, was a guitarist who had been really into rock, like, you know, Eric Clapton and, you know, heavy rock stuff. He had gotten into, on one hand, Mahavishnu Orchestra, John McLaughlin, which is more extended kind of, but still pretty heavy. And then he also got into really out kind of art ensemble of Chicago, out jazz. And then he brought that into that group. And then that group kind of fused all that, you know, from really outside stuff to, you know, jazz rock to straight ahead jazz. It was a pretty interesting kind of melting pot of ideas at that point. And that's kind of where my mind really got expanded into, you know, checking out all of the stuff that was connected, like from the Art Ensemble of Chicago, Anthony Braxton, etc.
Yeah.
And like that. And I really got into the really outside type of stuff at that point, but still really enjoyed like heavy groove kind of stuff. You know, I didn't, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, might seem like it doesn't fit, but it, you know, it's okay. So I've kind of followed that through the years. And then I played, you know, with, once I came to LA, I kind of got hooked up through, well, John Rapson I was still working with, and then met Alex Cline while doing a concert at the Century City Playhouse, which was one of those concert series like Sunspace,
Oh.
you know, was on Sunday nights. And Alex introduced himself to me, and through him I met Vinny and like all the LA guys, and eventually, you know, off into like Horace Tapscott and that whole the whole black LA jazz kind of advanced jazz scene. But once I started doing my own stuff, I was working with Vinny and playing his kind of adventurous jazz. So when I did my own thing, I figured like I could do something like that, but I wanted to do something a little different. So I came up with this band called Doppler Funk, which was kind of, it was a groove oriented type of thing, but with kind of outside weirdness put into the compositions, you know, and I composed tunes for that. And that was a very interesting band. We did a record on Nine Winds.
Yeah, actually, we could listen a little bit, like, for, at least for a minute,
Mhm.
to, because I saw that on, I saw that. Let me just get my share screen going. And so let's see, Wayne Peet, look again. And then let's see, was it in here?
That's newer.
But on this playlist, was it Inner Functum? Was that part of what you were talking about? Or
That's later. That's
let's
all
see,
later.
we have Patchwork. We have,
I don't think that's going to be in there. That was there's my solo piano record. There you go, Blasto. That anything off of there.
right through here.
Yeah.
Wow, the titles are like Brad Dute's titles. Which one should I which one should I pick?
I guess just tries clear.
Okay. Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm not sure if what is it? Oh, it's your record.
Yeah.
I think I could play more, don't you? I don't think that they'll take me down for licensing. What do you think?
I don't know how that works.
I don't either. Well, anyway, that is really interesting. Wow. I'm going to listen more to that. That's really interesting. And so John Fumo, he's the trumpet.
Yep.
Vinny, what was he playing on that sax?
Yeah.
Bruce Fowler,
Trombone.
Nels, percussion.
Nels is
No.
guitar.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
Alex is the percussion, and
Yeah.
Steuart.
Steuart Liebig on bass.
That
So
sounded great.
We used to play a lot of rock clubs and whatnot, with that.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of live gigs with that band before we went in the studio with it. And
Wow, that sounded great.
yeah, it's and you didn't even hear the solos.
Okay, well, maybe I can play a little bit of the solos because, then that would be like a new thing.
Some of those are long. I mean, the tunes are long. I used to do, when we'd play live, that it'd be that like half hour a tune kind of a thing. But when I started doing a thing where, to make it more not so crazy long, I would have like 2 solos on a tune, and one of them would be designated as the long solo and one of them be the short solo. So there was no real limitations other than that, but it was just like, you're going to play the extended one and now you're going to do the concise one.
Well, I'm just curious to hear a little. Let me see if I can hear a little bit of it. Turn up the sound. Okay, this is great, man. So, and actually, Roland wants to know if he can buy this somewhere.
That's only on vinyl,
Oh,
but I think I have it up on Bandcamp. You buy it on Bandcamp, I think.
okay, Roland, go look on Bandcamp, or unless you want to buy the vinyl. Wow, that sounded so great.
Yeah, it's that was an interesting. We tried to get, as big of a kind of well-recorded commercial sound on it, after doing a lot of gigs in rock clubs where, I would put two mics in front of the stage and record the cassette just for a document, you know, but I wanted it to have like some,
Yeah.
so, and that's like, that was an 8-track
Yeah.
recording. But what I did was some of the tunes, the heads are kind of hard, and you know how that is with, when you're doing a jazz recording, sometimes you have a really great solos and then the out head just gets butchered, and you can hear that all over. I mean, a lot of times people have to retake heads. You hear it, like I hear now that I've done it, I can hear it all over Blue Note records,
Huh.
where they cut together, like, oh, this, the trombone solo was probably the best one, so they're using that one, and then they're cutting to the trumpet solo from another take because that was probably the best one, and then.
And that was in the days of tape cutting,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, this one was on tape as well. But I wanted the heads to be tight. So what I did, but I wanted that jazz, like a lot of fusion records, they would record the rhythm section and then play the solos over the top of it.
Yeah.
You don't really get that interaction, right?
Right.
So what I did with this one is I recorded, I didn't record the horns on the heads, but I had the solos all live. So as the rhythm section and whoever was the soloist was set up to play along with the band. And then the next day we came in and did the heads as an overdub.
Oh,
so that we could take our time and really get the heads of the horns really tight.
Wow, it's a good idea.
Yeah. So that way I got the interaction of the live thing, but I was able to not have to accept, heads that were not as tight as I wanted them to be.
Yeah. Wow, that's such an interesting idea. Did I see the date right? Was it like 1988?
Yeah, I think 87 or 88.
Yeah. Wow, that was cool. And again, Clayton Mack is here. He says hi.
Oh, cool.
Again, here's my question. Oh, Roland wants vinyl, but however, there's one copy available for $50. And he wants to know, do you get any of that, or is there another way to just buy
what's that, just on eBay or something?
Amazon?
It's probably, I don't probably get anything off of that.
Do you have vinyl yourself on that?
I maybe only have like 3 copies of it.
Do you want to sell one to Roland?
I don't know. We have to see. Vinny might have some laying around too.
Roland, I'll hook you up with Wayne, and then you can talk about it. And Rich said several of your albums are available on Spotify.
Yeah, I just got my son helped me get all that organized, and I've been putting that up.
Cool.
So the stuff's up on Spotify now. Yeah.
And you said Bandcamp too.
And
right?
I've got stuff on Bandcamp as well.
Yeah.
The kind of offshoot of the band that you just played, because it was a larger band and it was harder to get everybody scheduled and stuff. So I thought, let me try something smaller. And I took Cline, the guitarist, and Steuart Liebig, the bass player, and we made a trio. where we used drum machines and,
Huh.
and did improvised and some kind of structured improvised stuff, and I called it Rhythm Plague. And there's a bunch of those up on my Bandcamp,
Rhythm.
as well as Spotify.
I'll just write that in the comments section. Rhythm play.
Yeah.
Interesting name.
Yeah. Well, we used, I mean, Steuart and I both had drum machines, and we would program beats of various, things. And then we would kind of, the concept of the band, we just alternate. Like we'd do one of mine and one of his and one of mine and one of his. And we also played a lot of rock clubs and stuff with that, because it was, pretty loud.
Yeah.
But really some great stuff, really great stuff.
Huh. Really cool. Okay, so going back to my questions here. So, and I'm not really even sure. I mean, I already asked you how your taste got developed, where along those lines. But is there what I hear when I hear that, when I hear the music, I get a sense of space, and kind of solidity in the space, like immediately as soon as it starts, there's this aesthetic space that's created. And within that, there's rhythms, there's repetitive rhythms or licks, there's harmonic dissonance, there's space, and it creates this kind of living, breathing personality, and I'm kind of fascinated with that. I just think it's great. I mean, all good music does that, and that's why you love music, because it brings you into a space. But this music seems especially full of that kind of stuff.
Well, I appreciate, all you're saying there. It's good. I mean, more recently as well, I've been kind of getting into, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but dissonance, what people would call dissonance, creates extra vibrations, because if you have like an open chord, like just a triad, it's just, and even just a fifth, it's very smooth, but once you put in some half step, even a major seven with a half step, it gets a little more busy, and there's a kind of interesting thing that happens when you juxtapose things that are close together like that and create another like vibration that's not just those notes. And I just like that. You can because it shows, the contrast shows what the thing is, because if you have nothing but one thing, even if it's good, there's nothing to set it off. It's kind of like a white painting on a white wall. You need something to set it off, So once you can start those kind of combinations and then move them around, you hear this other thing kind of moving around in it. And it happens even more like when you get into, I've been doing stuff where I'm using half steps and stuff in low frequencies, like on organ pedals, when I'm playing organ, and it creates this other thing that's kind of interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to imagine that. I mean, it's a similar thing to what you're speaking about, but the waves are different, right? The waves are probably longer or like kind of because higher waves are
Yeah,
faster,
faster. Yeah.
right? And they're kind of they go up and down quite a bit. And then the lower ones are more horizontal, I guess you could say. So it's kind of the same as what you're saying, except it's a different experience.
Yeah. And if you're doing it like with an organ pedal, it's sustained, so if you put, like, you can use a drone and then put other, like, move these other close notes against it, bring them in and out. You hear this thing kind of growing and then coming back, and it creates this whole other deal going on that you don't hear in a lot. I mean, you can find it, but you don't hear it in a lot of stuff, because generally you're taught with orchestration, that the higher you can put closer together than the lower. Like when you voice a chord, you'll have an octave or a tenth lows, and then you can put the closer, like if you put stuff closer together low, it gets, muddy and
Yeah,
grumbly, which is not what you want. If you want a clarity of a chord, you don't want that.
right.
But I'm kind of interested in messing with this kind of muddy thing of bringing it in and out so that it creates this other kind of pulse thing within the pitch down there.
Yeah.
It only works in certain kinds of music. I mean, you wouldn't want to do it
Sure.
like on a standard.
Right. Ooh. Yeah, that's interesting. As you were speaking, I was thinking about it popped into my head Mark Dresser,
Mhm.
right? Wonderful bass player along these lines, right? Of taste in music. And I remember he was playing at the Blue Whale and Brad Dutz. I saw Brad Dutz there. Brad was kind of the only person I knew in the audience. I didn't know anyone in the audience, which was unusual. And I mentioned it to him and he said, "Yeah, this is a whole other community." So there is a community of people who love this style, right?
Yeah, it's not as many as love Beyonce, of course, but
Yeah. I mean, do you get to play this style? Well, of course, taking into consideration that we're in a weird
yeah,
weird isn't even the word, but we're in a weird period of time. But normally, like before the pandemic or something, would you have a lot of situations that you could play this music live?
it's mostly these kind of concert series things, you know. I mean, back earlier, uh, there was a lot of stuff more in Europe and stuff. Like I
Yeah.
went there with Vinny in the '80s,
Oh,
but then that became financially a different thing to where you couldn't bring whole bands over as easily.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but I mean, I've always had a little twisted thing. I try to bring that into almost everything I do, but you do it in context. I mean, I do a lot of church gigs too. And you wouldn't want to.
Twist too much.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I've done things where I had like special music services where I kind of did my own thing,
Hmm.
because they knew that that's what I was going to do. You don't want to like do it during the hymns,
Yeah.
um, but I also do a lot of improvised things. I mean, I did a restaurant piano gig for a few years in Beverly Hills back, and did a lot of improvised music. You just do it for the context, and you can actually put a lot more stuff in than you think you might be able to.
Yeah.
You just can't make it super abrasive or anything as long as it's quiet. you can get away with a lot of stuff, but I wouldn't be doing like complete, atonal stuff, but you can find ways to be creative within whatever context.
Yeah. Roland asked if you've experimented with dissonances created by the use of quarter tones.
Not exactly per se, but I mean, I do use like pitch bend and stuff, on synths. I mean, when you're on piano, you really can't do quarter steps because it's all set up in half steps.
Right.
Although I play inside the piano sometimes with a slide, but I mean, yeah, some of it has to do with the fact that I'm on a piano,
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing how that works, because if you have a horn or something, a voice, a horn, a guitar, something where you're actually touching the thing that's making the sound, you have a lot more, no frets on a voice.
Yeah.
There's no frets on a voice. So, but a piano, you're just kind of stuck with the half steps, unless you're talking about, a keyboard with a pitch bend type of thing. And they do have those Middle Eastern setup, keyboards that do have some of that stuff. But yeah, I've done it more like with effects, effects like the Yamaha organ that I have has a pitch strip on it as well. And I use a theremin sometimes where sometimes I'll play like on a strict keyboard and then play along with it on the theremin, which is, it's impossible to be accurate.
Yeah.
But if I do it with that in mind, then it gives you this kind of weird thing where it's following the pitch, but it's not exactly on it.
Yeah. Yeah. There used to be an Indian man who was he kind of, I think, deemed himself the jazz connection in India, and he came and did a few workshops in my workshop series, and he would invite singers, like a more professional singer, over to work a gig in a hotel 6 nights a week and get free lessons from some of the best Indian singers, classic singers, and they learned the quarter tones and all of that stuff. And yeah, it was interesting. I didn't do it, but I heard other singers after they had come back. It was really interesting how it interwove into their music. It was pretty cool. You're coming out with a new record, right?
Yes.
Tell us about that, and then I guess I could play one of the cuts.
It's a quartet that is mostly based around my compositions, which most of them are new compositions from at that time when we recorded it, which was November of 2019, before the world got shut down.
Yeah.
And it has Andrew Pask on woodwinds, and he also has live electronic effects that he's designed himself that are pretty interesting because they change. It's not like just putting a delay on or just putting it interacts. He's created these things that interact. So pretty interesting electronic effects. And Roberto Miranda on acoustic bass, who I've played with for years and years. My first actual record release was on one of his records back in the 80s. And then my son on drums. And we've done a lot of gigs around before we went into the studio and recorded. there's also we did a concert at the Santa Monica Library, which I don't know, maybe up online.
Oh,
But yeah, so it's got some kind of a variety of newer compositions of mine
ah,
and a couple
well,
of other ones.
I'm gonna go look in my downloads. So here we go. We transfer. I'm opening it up. So you gave me three. I had to something with an F. I
I had to fix the truth too.
had to fix the truth.
That's kind of a rollicking blues.
Yeah, and then Outback or Butak. Sorry,
Orbutac.
or Butak.
And that's kind of a ostinato groove, kind of low key.
And Surface of the Desert.
That's an older song that's kind of like a modal jazz thing that we updated into this band.
I don't know which one. I'm going to listen to all of them later, but which one do you think I should listen to?
Well, if you want a contrast for what we've been listening to, you could listen to the blues one.
Okay, I had to fix the truth.
Too.
All right, I'm going to share the sound here. This is great. Okay, I won't listen to the whole thing, but that sounds great. Oh my God. And you know what was really weird? I've never seen this happen, but this, you see all this right here?
Yeah.
It kept opening up over and over again.
Yeah, it's like a tube.
Yeah,
Hall of mirrors.
that is so interesting. I'm not sure why that happened, but it looks really cool. Actually, again, Roland, who likes to buy music and support, he said he loves it. And when and where is it going to be available?
It's coming out on PF Mentum, the record label, probably before the end of the year.
Oh, cool.
We're just getting a cover together now, and then it'll be released as just before that. That company's actually gonna fold, but it'll be one of the last ones, along with Vinny Golia project that we just finished. And
Whose label is that?
it was started by Jeff Kaiser in the West Coast, and now he's teaching in Missouri, so he's kind of running it out of there. He's a trumpet player, improviser guy that, you know, has a label.
Yeah.
Put out a lot of interesting stuff over the years.
Yeah.
My last two before this new one.
What was the label called again?
PF Mentum. PFM Mentum. MENTUM.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool. And then did you say you did a lot for Vinny's label, Nine Winds?
Yeah, over the years I recorded a lot of stuff with Benny, and then his latest one is going to come out on that same label, PF Mentum, which is this monstrous 12 album set that
Wow.
we just finished. Been working on it for 13 months, and that's going to be coming out as well right around the same time.
Wow. It's a lot of work, man.
It was.
You know, I didn't ask you at all about this. I mean, you told me a little bit about it, but you grew up in LA.
No,
Oh,
did not. I was born in Dallas, was only a baby there, and moved around various places: Eastern Washington, Portland, Oregon, Pocatello, Idaho. Ended up back in California. My parents are both from California, Southern California, and went to high school out in Imperial Valley, went to college in Santa Barbara, then ended up in LA.
oh, I see. Okay, so yeah. And did you were your parents musical, or I mean, you kind of got into, I know you got into rock early, but did you have siblings who played, or?
I got one brother. We both played trombone uh, in school bands and stuff, and
Yeah.
both took piano lessons, and he kind of just left it by the wayside, and I decided to stay with it. My parents weren't
By the wayside.
really. What's that?
I was just quoting you. He left it by the wayside. I have
Yeah.
sisters who did that too. Yeah.
Although he's been supportive, he produced a couple of the records and stuff, and it's been a big part of getting my studio set up and various aspects.
Yeah. I'm just answering somebody. Sorry. Hold on one moment. Sorry to interrupt my flow of communication. Okay. And fine, that's good. Sometimes I like to answer people. Um, so, yeah. So,
My parents weren't musical. One grandmother sang in church choirs and could read and music and stuff, but that's about it. But my parents were always very supportive of what I was up to.
yeah, did you, it doesn't sound like you ever had in mind to do anything but music.
Right. When I was still in high school, I just kind of decided that's what I wanted to do, and just to try to follow that. And I also decided I didn't want to teach, because that seemed like, the easier way, because there's, music teachers everywhere.
Yeah, so you never taught
I've
in your,
taught here and there,
yeah,
just private to, but I don't really have like a system or anything. I
yeah,
have a certain amount of knowledge. If I have a self-motivated student, I can help them, but I'm not really a teacher. I mean, teachers are great. Teachers are able to bring stuff out of people and find that spark and make it grow, and
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. I don't really care. Like, if somebody's interested, I'll participate and tell them stuff, but I'm not really a teacher,
yeah, yeah,
I have great respect for teachers, but
yeah,
for me, it ended up working out to be, a player, kind of juggling a lot of stuff,
yeah,
and then falling into engineering
yeah,
kind of helped out, because, it keeps, and I really enjoy it. It's not like I got to do this now.
yeah,
I kind of like, if I was only playing, I would miss engineering, and when I'm only engineering, I miss playing. So I kind of like to have it
yeah,
all going on.
yeah. Where do you get your inspiration?
For what? In general, to
Good
get up in the morning?
question. Good question. For what, Cathy? What do you mean? Um, okay, well, actually, I think I was thinking of playing and writing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just something I like to do. I've always felt that the whole kind of music is communication thing is kind of bogus. Because if you want to communicate, you're going to use language. It's not really, even if it does communicate something, it's not very efficient. It's kind of nebulous, So I've always seen it more like, if people enjoy it, they can kind of join along with you. It's not like you're trying to do something for them. It's kind of like creating this thing
Wow, that's great. I like it.
Everybody can kind of participate in, whether they're a listener or a player, and you're not kind of trying to pre-plan like, well, how can I do this so people like it?
Yeah.
You know, I've been more into just doing stuff that I like, and
Yeah.
then hopefully, people, would like it too.
Come along for the ride. Yeah.
Which doesn't mean I'm just, because I've known various people along the way that are very, I don't know, strict about their art, like especially people that are more quote unquote avant-garde, they wouldn't be caught dead doing anything, that they would think is commercial or,
Yeah.
something like that. But I mean, I just always felt like, you just bring it to whatever opportunity you can.
Hmm.
And I've done, like I said, I do a lot of church gigs. I've played straight ahead gigs with singers, played in reggae bands, blues bands, rock bands. You know, I mean, for years I was MD for touring American Idol singers,
Oh, really?
did arranging for them, and MD'd the band. So those kind of situations, you're not like just free to do whatever you want,
Yeah.
but you can still be creative within whatever you know the limitations are, and make it work for you.
Yeah.
But when I do my own stuff, I'm just doing something that I want to hear, you know
Yeah.
and like, and it's kind of straddles a few. You could tell in that tune is kind of a straight 12/8 blues, but then it kind of will twist away, but it's not just out, it's still connected
Yeah.
to that feeling of that kind of straight up, 12/8 blues thing.
Yeah.
But just sitting there playing blues licks over it wouldn't be interesting to me for my own stuff.
Yeah.
I want to bring something to it that, you know, is cool to me, and also gets a feeling,
Yeah.
because it's not an intellectual exercise. It's about getting this kind of whatever that is, that feel thing, which for me is kind of these tangential things that kind of orbit around the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. That's great. Yeah. It just reminds me, I mean, people talk about this kind of stuff all the time, especially singers, you know, because there are singers who feel that they have to sell the audience on what they're doing. And that always seems backwards to me. It's, but it's easy to say this, but it's challenging to really get these spaces. Like I tell the singers there's three universes. The first universe is you. And so you have to do what you want and what you're capable of. And you have to be aware of that on some level. Then the second universe has that and the musicians. And so that's the second universe. And anything that happens in there is the land of possibilities. And then the third universe is another expansion out into the audience. So the audience is hearing you and the musicians, and they're sharing with that, and it's, to me, that's, you know, I just I figured out how to break it down a little bit and have
Yeah.
singers go, oh, really? Okay.
Well, you
Uh,
still you that's all right, and but one thing I've learned from recording and performing is you do have to put it out there and define it, what you're doing, because if you make it too subtle, you might think that it's what it is, but it's not, unless you can hear it, so
how do
that's
you do that?
it's definition, using definition in what you're doing. I found like, because I'm not like egotistical kind of player. Like sometimes I'd just be happy not to take solos, just to be in there,
Yeah.
supporting, in the rhythm section. But I found like, when you listen back after recording, sometimes stuff that you did that you thought was cool or you thought was kind of subtle, it's not projecting, it's not getting through.
Yeah.
So you have to, I've learned that you have to exaggerate a little bit, like everything that you do as a performance. Not out of a bad, not because you're just trying to exaggerate, but because it needs to be well defined before it's perceptible, So, and I bring that same thing into engineering, because there's kind of like, there's different camps in engineering, like in pop music, it's really about sonic architecture. It's not really about a live band or performance. It's about creating this amazing sonic sculpture, which, has its roots all the way from, multi-tracking, up through the Beatles really, did a lot of stuff of just only in the studio type of possibility stuff, and to the point now where a lot of pop music is just a complete
Yeah.
architecture,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the most amazing stuff is just amazing.
Yeah.
It's this just, when it's done well, I mean, the depth of field and all the sounds that are still, it's not cluttered,
Yeah.
all that stuff is amazing. And I've tried to kind of learn from those type of things and bring them into more naturalistic recording situations like jazz and classical, which is generally thought of as being about the live playing, which of course classical music isn't anymore. Like they all do it with completely overdubbed, because especially classical people are into not making any mistakes. So they want to like have every little thing perfect, but for me, it's about like, I felt there was a lot of free jazz music that was just annoying sounding because
Yeah.
the recording was terrible,
Uh-huh.
But then a lot of people would wear that as a badge of honor. It's like, we're not commercial, we've got this really crappy room recording of this thing and it shows us how like genuine we are, and I just always felt like, well, why not take the exact same content and make it sound good?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not talking about changing, commercializing it, or, I'm just talking about the sound,
Yeah.
because if you had like a free jazz thing, like even, like a really screaming free jazz, screaming saxophones and all that stuff, and it just sounds like really harsh, it's just like, it's off-putting, even if you like that music,
Yeah.
But if it sounds rich and full,
Yeah.
it's a better experience, So I've tried to bring some of that stuff into, you know, jazz, classical type of stuff. And then to do that, you have to transgress some unwritten rules, about compression and reverb and
Russian. Yeah, right.
editing and
That reminds me, remember when Ornette Coleman was doing the Pat Metheny thing?
yeah.
And I don't know if you saw it. He came to town and he played in that big theater that's not really happening anymore, across from Capitol in Hollywood. And they had like two drummers, two guitar players, two bass players.
Hmm.
Um, I could listen to it on recordings, but I could not listen to it live because it was so friggin' loud, and it was all, for some reason, they weren't using dynamics. So they never got softer or left space, or it was really, and I just could not get far enough away from the music to enjoy it, you know. But I really dug it on recordings. But, there was, there were dynamics. I mean, maybe there were dynamics and I just couldn't deal with it because of the volume of the sound,
It's possible. I mean, bad PA mixes are just a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Aretha, like probably the last thing she did in LA,
Uh-huh.
and it was just atrocious. I mean, there was feedback going on like all the way till the end of the concert,
Oh God.
and it was just like, I mean, it was so bad they even mentioned it in the LA Times review. But I'm sitting there going like, how can this be? And she probably had her own sound. It's just like, because I know it's hard. I mean, there's technical things that come up. I've worked these things, but I just, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah.
But because I mean, you could a ton of things. Rock things are just notorious.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, like bad PA mixes. I mean, a lot of rock things, they only mic the kick and the snare and the toms, and they have no overheads on the drums. So it's like you're not really hearing
The full drum
the
set.
kit. You're not, when it, like, they'll have the hi-hat mic, so the guy will be playing hi-hat, and then he goes to the ride on the bridge, and in a big venue, it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, he's playing the ride as part of the music, and they don't even think like, oh, maybe having overheads might be a cool thing. It's just too hard to deal with because cymbals are messy. They're harsh and they're high and they get in everything. So it's just easier if they don't mic them. But it's not really representative of, the music.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anyway.
I was thinking of playing The Surface of the Desert.
Well, that's 14 minutes long. So,
Well, I won't do the whole thing.
yeah, you might want to, you could probably even start a little ways into it because it has like kind of a long intro.
Okay. So first I will connect my iTunes, and so somewhere like here.
There you go.
so good. I can't wait till it comes out.
Hey, thanks.
Wow, Wayne. Really great.
So that basically is all. I played the electric piano live with the band, so everything you're hearing is live, and then I overdubbed some Hammond organ
I see.
on the heads and a couple of places just to kind of fill it out.
Yeah.
But all those effects that you're hearing, like on the saxophone, were live. He was doing that while he was playing.
Yeah. It's great. And it's the music, it's not kind of in the form of, okay, here's the head, here's the solos, here's the head again. You know, it's not like that. It's kind of, the solos are kind of a gateway, right, into
A
a
way, but I
developing
mean,
idea.
essentially that's what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
eventually.
there's
Right.
an intro that sets it up, and then there's the head, which is because you started it just at the end of the intro, and then the head,
Yeah.
and then it was the saxophone solo.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of interaction.
Yeah.
Then later there's more solos, and then we come back and do an out head. So essentially, it's a jazz tune.
You ever forget what song it is?
No.
I heard Coltrane actually said that sometimes he would just forget what song they were playing.
Yeah, well, he played it. I mean, when you're playing him really that long, I mean, he has, the live stuff is pretty long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like the stuff that I've been doing a lot of work on. Horace Tapp's got, issues, posthumous disc issues, and mixing, recording and mixing the Pan African People's Orchestra stuff.
Uh-huh.
And they're like that too. They're really long tunes, so when it comes to making a record, you got to figure out how do we have like more tunes, when all of them are 35 minutes long.
Yeah. Really gets you high, doesn't it?
When it works, it's great. You're just off into this place, you're not thinking like, how come this is long? It's building, it's doing,
Yeah.
you know.
Does it ever, have you had experiences where it was like not so much fun, like you really thought, I got to get out of this?
Well, I mean, the worst is jam sessions where like there's a line of saxophone players and you're in the rhythm section.
Right.
It's like, okay, another solo. But I usually, in groups of mine, I usually don't have everybody solo because
Yeah.
that's one way that it's going to get long is like
Yeah.
if everybody solos. So, like in that Doppler funk thing, I would never have more than 2 solos in a tune. I mean, I
Yeah.
might have a drum thing, or
Yeah.
something, but in terms of the horns and the guitar and keyboard, it'd be like 2 solos. Wouldn't be everybody lining up.
Yeah, and as you said before, the long solo and the short solo.
Exactly, yeah.
Do you actually specifically use those guidelines? The long solo, like you take a long solo
I
and
did with that band.
Uh-huh.
That was actually part of the concept,
Yeah.
I've done it with this band too. I've done, I think, the version of Orbitac that I gave you. There was 2 versions. One of them had discrete solos, and one of them we just kind of played. So we were kind of just trading lines back and forth and whatnot. And I think that's the one that I'm putting on the record. Because it just, I just wanted to break up that thing of just having solos, like now we have the keyboard solo, now we have the sax solo.
Right. What's the record going to be called?
True Truth.
I'm telling you, it's like Brad Dute's titles. 10 tenors tying
10 gardeners named Nick.
Yeah.
Well, he's the king of that for
He
sure.
really is. Um, yeah, I kind of miss his presence in LA, you know.
Yeah,
Although I know he just came here, but I didn't get to see them.
I
I
didn't.
saw I did see Nick Mancini at Sam First, but I didn't see Brad.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. You said you traveled to Europe. Did you travel other places in the world too?
Yeah, I did tours in Japan with Vinny, and there's a singer, Sweet Baby J.
Yeah.
I I did Japan. I did Indonesia with her,
Uh-huh.
and then I've toured in Europe with a Dylan tribute band. You know, amongst the other things that I've done.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if we'll I wonder if we'll ever go to foreign countries again.
we're up playing the whole thing by ear.
I
Everybody wants answers, but
miss Japan. I just talked to my friend yesterday in Hiroshima. And he was saying, why don't you maybe you should plan on coming in the spring? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure the spring is going to be open, you know. Maybe
well,
in a year, maybe in a year.
yeah, well, kind of they kind of shut down people from coming in, other than the
Yeah,
Olympics.
I know.
And even if you can go in, it's like 2 weeks
Yeah,
quarantine, whether you're vaccinated or not.
yeah,
So it's not easy.
right. Um, by the way, on YouTube, I didn't see this before, but Eliyahu Ben, I don't know how to pronounce that name, Ximenes. I have worked with Wayne live and in the studio. To quote Wayne, he is metamorphized into a giant. If it is playing
Bigger
production,
now.
if it's playing production, engineering, software, and hardware, wizardry, etc., arranging, orchestrating, conducting, mixing, mastering, and fun joking, Wayne does it all. Maximum creativity. He does it all. It's very annoying, lol. That's funny.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that I think is that it's good about what I do is that I'm a musician and an engineer. So I have a certain, knowledge about what's going on with the stuff that's being recorded so that I can help out, help the vision and the whatever people are trying to do to get from A to B without going like, oh, what do you mean the bridge? Or stuff, and I can even flag, if somebody plays a wrong note or something, I'll flag it because I can hear that, somebody's
Yeah.
got the wrong chord, and it just saves time. 'Cause I can go like, yeah, it was good that, you might want to check the last bar coming out of the bridge, or, for the guitar or whatever it is. It's helpful to have somebody that's
Who knows?
knowledgeable
Yeah.
about music as well as, you know,
The engineering.
yeah. And I mean, that guy, Roger Rhodes, was like that. I mean, would do orchestral stuff, but he would, he knew how to read the scores, so it's, it's just helpful. Like most of the time, if people have charts when they're doing a session, I want to have the chart
Yeah.
to look at because it just helps me to drop markers in and keep it organized and, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I remember you did that with my project. Editing. It was like, yeah, that was really great. Having a pair of ears that heard more than I did, because a lot of times those things might pass me by.
Yeah, well, when you're doing it, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the hardest thing about doing like my own record is because I'm I'm engineering and producing and playing, which is, not ideal. But I mean, I can do it, so I will do it. But uh, a lot of times it's helpful to have somebody, outside, because when you're doing it, like you're saying, you're kind of on the train,
Yeah.
and you might not notice something in passing that somebody that's sitting outside of it will be able to say, "Oh, there was a place we should check," or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. So, what have you been doing recently that you're going to be doing in the future? I mean, besides your record, obviously that you just finished mixing that, right?
Yeah, we recorded it, and I got most of it edited, and most, I don't know, about 2/3 of it mixed, like
Yeah.
early 2020. And
Oh,
then, I mean, I forget stuff because I'm just in the moment, but this is all the stuff projects that I've had over the pandemic.
you only have one piece of paper about it? I have like
There's a second side.
50.
Well, it's pretty packed, but and some of it is, been pretty big. I mean, like the Vinny Golia thing was, pretty solid 13 months of work.
Was that the number of CDs that you were talking about?
Yeah, there's like 12 CDs in a set, but, and he claims that it's part one.
Oh,
So,
yeah, Vinny. Wow. That's funny.
but yeah, uh, there's stuff that's coming out. I mean, I've been doing a certain amount of work for the Village label, which puts out older Horace Tapscott plus newer people in that orbit.
Oh,
I mastered a Jamel Dean uh, record, the pianist,
yeah,
and
it's
there's a
good.
60th anniversary Pan African People's Orchestra uh, album that's coming out that I've just finished.
Wow.
It has stuff from every decade, like 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s,
Wow.
aughts, and tens.
Is that like that sounds like a big project as far as
Yeah,
numbers of
it's
see.
going to be a 2 LP set, I believe. We had to cut down some of it for the LP and then longer versions on the digital release. Just because, as you know, LPs have side one and side two for one thing, and then they have a limited number of time on the record.
Yeah.
So I also there was a documentary on KCT about the Pan African People's Orchestra last year
Uh-huh.
that is still up on their website. Uh, that I recorded their big concert at the New Year's Eve 2019
Oh.
location thing at City Hall,
Oh.
where they headlined the New Year's Eve concert, which was great.
Wow.
And then I ended up mixing the audio on that documentary, and that won a local Emmy for best documentary.
God, that's
And,
amazing.
yeah, and the concert is up on KCT too, because KCT liked the concert portion, so they said let's put out the whole concert. So I mixed the whole concert, and that's up there too.
God, Wayne, that's so much. I that's just like it's hard to imagine for me like how much time and effort you put in on that.
Well, luckily there was a budget on that one, so
Yeah.
it was a lot of work, but it ended up sounding really good. Because that was another I think it was 42 tracks, because that concert had like the full orchestra, which is basically a big band with 2 drummers, plus like an African drum ensemble, a choir, vocalists, solo vocalists as well. And So yeah, that was a big recording and a big, mix and stuff. But, it makes it like when you can do it up with the recording, with a big multi-track thing, you can really make that stuff sound huge. You just don't get that by putting a couple mics up in front of the
Right.
band. You'll get the music, but it won't have that impact that you can get from really recording it. And people, it's kind of like the link that people don't realize. When you hear like a really good sounding record, people just think that's the music.
Yeah.
And it is, even with, jazz, and especially like if it's just played live or whatever. But the recording, how good the recording is what really gives that the impact.
Yeah.
The sonic impact, rather than just kind of this record, of it. And because also the human ear is just not as, it's better than microphones. So like if you're in a club listening to a band or something, it'll sound great, but if you put a microphones right where you were sitting and recorded it and listened to it later, it just wouldn't sound as good as when you were sitting there. Your ear is just better. Plus your brain filters what you want to hear. You can ignore the cash register and the ice machine, and whereas a microphone, everything just flattens out. Like if somebody's coughing, it's just annoying on a recording, whereas in real life it's not quite as annoying, because you can ignore it.
Yeah. When you have 42 tracks, does that mean you have 42 microphones, or is that not actually?
Pretty much, sometimes if there's direct, like the keyboard would be direct, and
the bass maybe.
The bass is direct. One of my things is like, I really, when they use only the direct on acoustic bass, like there are some basses that have really good directs, but most of the time it just sounds like a rubber band. So it's practical, it works, because especially with acoustic bass, as you know, they're not loud. You put a mic on a bass that's next to a drum, you don't have a mic on a bass, you have another drum mic, because the bass is just so much quieter than what's going on around it. But that's the sound of the actual bass is the mic. So I like to have a combination. Even if sometimes you can only use that mic when the band breaks down and there's a bass solo. But then it'll actually sound really, and I did that like for the concert we're talking about. Like they weren't going to do that. In fact, like they fought me on it. But I was able to put a mic on the bass, and it was like that. I couldn't really use it any other time. But when there was an unaccompanied bass solo, it was golden, because then it really just sounded like real bass. It didn't sound like,
Yeah.
So but most of it, that's all mics, and then in those situations, you figure out what you're going to share with the PA, and then, sometimes I'll put up extra mics if they're not really going to mic everything.
Yeah. We're getting close to the end, but I wanted to just touch a little bit on that Orbutak. Is that Orbutak? Orbutak. I wanted to hear a little bit of this, if you don't mind. This is the third cut that Wayne sent me from his new recording. Oops, I have no sound up. I said, I can't wait. I mean, that, has little essences of Weather Report, doesn't it? A little bit.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. I can't wait till it comes out. Um, you definitely sold a few copies today.
Cool. Cool.
Wayne, thanks for spending a precious 2 hours of your time. It's not like you have nothing to do. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
And-
it's great to talk to you. It's great to talk with, being interviewed by somebody that knows what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to know more, about you. And it's really impressive what you've done, throughout your life and the direction. And it's admirable. It really is admirable.
Oh, thanks. Just fighting along,
Well, I want you to have a great day. I'm just going to say just what's coming up. And tomorrow is Laurie Meacham, and she and her husband Roger Spencer developed or founded the Nashville Jazz Workshop.
Hmm.
I think it's one of the only, solid jazz organizations in Nashville. So she's a pianist. It's been together probably like 20 years at least. And then Thursday through Sunday, I post archives. And Lisa Rich is a singer from DC on Thursday. Friday, person too, Tony Jones, drummer and singer. Saturday, I don't know if you remember a pianist named Jeff Franzel, who used to live in LA.
I'm not sure.
Long time ago. But he moved to New York and he became a songwriter, a successful songwriter too. And then Sunday, I don't know if you know this guy, David Amram.
Yeah. Well, not personally, but I know.
You know of him. Yeah, he's like 92. Talk about projects. He has 12 projects going on. You know what I mean? He's amazing. He's classical and jazz and kind of Americana. And he was the resident composer for the New York Philharmonica for a while. He was also the French horn player, like on all the bebop records, the old bebop records.
Mm.
He's really an interesting man. And he was buddies and cohorts with Jack Kerouac. Interesting guy. So, and next week we're going to have Joanne Klein, an actress who's from Seattle. Billy Childs will be on Tuesday, great arranger and composer and conductor, pianist. And then Wednesday, Sinna E, who's probably one of the best jazz singers I know of. And she's Danish. She lives over in that area of the world. So, yeah, and if any of you are here and want to come see my CD release party, here's my CD. Da-da-da! Social Anthems, Volume 1. And we're having a CD release party on Friday, and you can go to my website and find out information. And Wayne, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a very inspired day.
I'm more inspired now. Talking with you.
Cool. All right. Well, bye. Thank you so much. And bye, everybody. Have a good day.